Understanding Microsoft Fabric. What is Microsoft Fabric? Well, the official definition from Microsoft is that it's a unified end-to-end analytics platform providing a single integrated environment for data professionals and the business to collaborate on data projects. In short, it's a one-stop shop to handle everything from the ingestion of data to the transformation and loading of data to the visualization of data through Power BI. The core components that make up Fabric are data engineering, data integration, data warehousing, real-time analytics, data science, and business intelligence. Each Fabric capacity has a OneLake associated with it, which can include data stored in any format, including but not limited to Delta, Parquet, CSV, JSON, and more. You can think of OneLake like it's a OneDrive for data, one copy of data to be used with multiple analytic engines. The experiences that you'll get with inside of Fabric are what makes Fabric unique in that you can go from Synapse data engineering to data warehousing to data science to real-time analytics over to the data factory and then to Power BI, all within the same application. Obviously the benefits there are that the components, data, and experience are all accessed and experienced from within the same application. This is just one of Microsoft's view of what they show about it, where you have your different data coming into your OneLake, and each Fabric capacity itself has a OneLake associated with it. And then you can have multiple different multiple lake houses and warehouses and workspace experiences within that. Okay, but data can also, so your data can be imported or copied into the OneLake, like say for instance Dynamics 365 or the Dataverse or others. Not only can you import your data into the OneLake, you can also have what's called a shortcut, which allows you to have a pointer or a reference back to data stored in other file systems. And that can be within Azure and OneLake, or externally like ADLS, S3 in Amazon, or the Dataverse. Okay. According to Microsoft, they've said that, in the future, there are going to be more shortcut target locations coming soon. But for now, that's pretty much the amount that they have available on the shortcut side. What's nice about the shortcut is that the files and folders appear to be stored locally within the OneLake, but you don't have a direct copy of data. It goes out and accesses that data when you're actually going to be using it. Okay. So what this means is you don't need to have a separate ETL process for data science and for reporting. You can do all your ETL processing and output to one or to multiple different uses, whether you're doing machine learning processing, reporting in Power BI, or other items. Those are those items at the top. So you ingest your data or shortcut your data into the OneLake, and then you can pump it out through or do ETL or anything else you need to do with it through the data factory, or consume it within the data engineering, data science, data warehousing, any real-time analytics, Power BI. Okay, so the components that we're going to now talk about and take a look at are the data engineering, the data integration, which is synonymous with data factory, data warehousing, the real-time analytics, data science, and some business intelligence. The data engineering and what you can tell, and we'll take a look at this later, is that the visual, I'm actually inside the Fabric workspace, and if you look down in the lower left, you'll see it says data engineering. So the nice part about this is that it gives you hot links for the most common tasks that are associated with that individual component. Okay, that's part of the experience that comes with Fabric. So as I'm in the data engineering area down here, you can see that at the top we have things like Lakehouse, Notebook, Spark, Spark Job, data pipelines. Okay, so the Lakehouse, obviously that's the collection of files, folders, and tables that represent a database over a data lake that utilize a Spark engine and or SQL engine for doing the data processing on it. Okay, And this actually does include enhanced capabilities for doing ACID transactions. Okay, so this is hosted within a workspace folder within the OneLake, right? And you can, so because it's a data lake, we can have structured and unstructured data alike that allows us to be able to bring both of those in and then use the other items to make our transformations that we need to make. Okay, and some of those transformations we can do with inside a notebook. So a Fabric notebook is a multi-language interactive programming tool with rich functions, right? It allows us to author code and markdown. It's similar to, think of it similar to a Jupyter notebook. Okay, so we can author code and markdown, and we can run it with running and monitoring it with a Spark job. We can view and visualize results, and we can collaborate with with others on the team through that notebook. Okay, so we also have Apache Spark jobs, which can run in parallel with other jobs in the application. And a job itself can consist of multiple different tasks that we've set up in our notebooks. We also have data pipeline here, which is used to coordinate data movement and transformation. Okay, like I said, again, part of the data, part of the functionality they brought over from Azure Data Factory into this. And you'll notice that there are some items that fit in multiple locations, like the data pipeline. It fits within the data engineering, but it also fits within the data integration section, where we have our data pipeline, which is that coordinating of data movement and transformation. But then we also have our data flow Gen 2, which is a low-code interface for ingesting data from hundreds of different data sources and doing our transformations there. And if you look in the lower left, you'll see that my experience says Data Factory. It says Data Factory now. So if we change that experience to data warehousing, again, our hot items, our hot buttons have changed to show us the different options that are most commonly associated with our data warehousing. Functions like, and this does function like a traditional data warehouse, right? It supports full transactional T-SQL capabilities that you would expect from an enterprise data warehouse. Then we have our pipeline and data flow Gen 2. Okay, so within the warehouse itself, we have a SQL Analytics endpoint. Okay, each lakehouse has a SQL Analytics endpoint that allows you to query your Delta table data with T-SQL. Right, so that's something that's specific to the data warehouse here within Fabric. We can mirror different data sources. We can mirror Azure SQL, Snowflake, or Cosmos DB. We have the hot buttons there to be able to mirror those from our data warehousing. If I switch to a different experience, we can see the real-time analytics one. So in the real-time analytics, we have an event stream, which is a central place to capture, transform, and route real-time events to destinations with a no-code experience. Okay, then we have KQL database, the database that holds information in a format that can execute KQL queries. We also can do KQL query sets, where we can run queries, view results, manipulate query results on data from our data, from a data explorer and the database. We also have the data science experience, where we can experiment, where the experiment, okay, the experiment item there is the primary unit of organization for machine learning runs. Okay, so the different runs that we can create. So a run corresponds to a single execution of a machine learning model code. So an experiment can, it's the primary unit for organizing those runs in. Of course, then we also have the machine learning model, which is a file that we train to recognize certain types of patterns, based on the different machine learning, that we're trying to accomplish. Okay. Again, in the lower left, it says data science. And then when we get to the business intelligence part of it, that is our reporting and dashboarding analytical tool. If you haven't used Power BI before, it's a reporting and dashboarding analytic tool. If you have used Power BI before, you'll recognize the experience and be able to create reports, and especially when I do the demonstration and open it up and take a look at it. you'll get an understanding of how and see how Power BI fits within this the mold of Microsoft Fabric. Okay. So also within Fabric, we have these containers that we have our OneLake, of course, but then within the OneLake, each we can create a workspace and typically, same kind of workspaces as you roughly the same type of concept. If you've dealt with Power BI before, the Power BI workspaces, it's the same kind of concept. We have a workspace within there that we can have multiple different items associated with it. So each workspace will have a lakehouse, a semantic model, and a SQL analytic endpoint associated with it when we add that, when that lakehouse is created. Now, in that, we can either use the experiences that we just showed, where we have all the data science, data factory, real-time analytics, or if we are within our workspace itself and we hit the new button on the right-hand side, you can see that's what happens when you hit the new. It comes up and it gives you the option there that you can just create them from there. If you want a data pipeline, data flow Gen 2, an environment, KQL, event stream, event house, if you want a machine learning experiment, KQL database, query set, whether you want to create a second lakehouse or another lakehouse, a machine learning model, notebook, a report, Spark job definition, or warehouse, we can create those straight from the workspace itself by being in the workspace and selecting new. So where does Dynamics 365, how do we fit this into and how do we route this into Fabric? Well, first we use the Dataverse and we use the connection with Dynamics 365. Then we're going to take a look at the link to Fabric and the lakehouse with the connection and manage it when we manage it all through the Power Apps Maker portal. So what's that look like? So the connection with D365, you can do it in a couple of different ways through our Power Apps Maker portal. Okay. So the first one is if we're in the portal and we click on the tables on the left-hand side, when that opens up, we'll have on the top menu bar, we'll have the Analyze option and link to Microsoft Fabric. When we do that link to Microsoft Fabric, it'll do the link, but it'll take the Dataverse and this will take every single file from the Dataverse, but then it will also open up and give us the option to add whatever Dynamics 365 F&O tables that we want that are associated and have been linked to this Power Apps portal. Okay, so again, the caution there is that it'll bring every single table from the Dataverse, but then we can pick and choose which ones we want from Dynamics 365 F&O. Okay, and that's if we go through the tables and the Analyze and the link to Microsoft Fabric. What that shows up as is that when you then click on and add the Azure Synapse link, and if you don't have Azure Synapse link showing on the left-hand side underneath the solutions and flows, you can click on the More on the left-hand side and then scroll almost to the bottom, and there'll be an option there where you can pin the Azure Synapse link to the menu bar on the left. Okay, so when you click on Azure Synapse link, the one that is the Microsoft Fabric link that I just talked about will be the one that says Microsoft OneLake. So then you would click on if you wanted to add additional tables, you could click on the little dot there, and then a new menu up top would show up, and you click on Manage Tables, and we'll show you that here when we get to the demonstration. So so once you're in the Azure Synapse link, you can look at the one that says Microsoft OneLake, which is the Microsoft Fabric direct link that we linked through the tables menu. Or if we're in that Azure Synapse link and we highlight one of the other connections or links that we've made, we can click on the ellipses and we can click on Link to Microsoft Fabric. Now, the difference here is that doing it through this way, where we start through the Azure Synapse link, we have to already have had a Azure Synapse link for Dataverse set up, which means that we already have a data storage Gen 2, and we have a Spark pool, and we have a Synapse Analytics link out there that we already have our tables going to. Now, again, part of that difference here then is that when we go through it this way, now we get to pick, and even though we already have it going to Synapse, now we get to pick and choose both the Dataverse and the FNO tables that we want to use. So the main Microsoft link way, which is the way that Microsoft suggests or prefers, sends all the Dataverse tables, whereas if we do it through the Azure Synapse link for Dataverse, and we already have it going out to Azure Synapse, now we can add the tables. Now we can add tables there, and we can pick and choose both the Dataverse and the FNO tables that we want to use. Okay. Now, when you're out in Fabric, if we go from our Maker portal over to Fabric and we look at our workspace, because both ways of doing this, we have to in that setup and linking process, we have to choose the workspace that we're going to send that information to. So when we go back out there and then look at the workspace, we will see a lakehouse that underneath that workspace that says Dataverse, and then has that big long connection that is the connection to, and how we identify that we're using, that's our Dataverse connection to, from Fabric back to the Dataverse and Dynamics 365 and FNO data. Okay, so that's a lot of information. So let's go and start the demonstration and taking a look at it. So I am going to share out my screen here and bring over my my Maker portal and Fabric. So if we are on the Power Apps home view, like I said, we can click on the tables here and analyze, link to Microsoft Fabric. I already have this one linked to Microsoft Fabric, so if I try to link here, it'll just say you already have the link, and it'll take me back out to Fabric. So I'm not gonna go that route. I am going to come down here to my Azure Synapse link, and like I mentioned before, if you don't see that there, you can always click on More, Discover All, and then if you scroll down towards the bottom, you should see Azure Synapse link in there somewhere, and you're able to then go ahead and pin that, and now your Azure Synapse link will show up on the left-hand menu here. So once we go into Azure Synapse link menu, it'll open up and it'll show us all the links that we have. The Microsoft OneLake link, if I click on Manage Tables from the Microsoft OneLake, which is our main Microsoft Fabric link that we did through the Tables menu, you see here that I have my Dataverse tables, and this will, depending on the number of tables you have, this can take a minute or so for the values to come up. But when they do, you'll see here that I have all of the majority of my tables for the Dataverse are synced up to and linked over to my Fabric. So 423 out of 429, and I don't have the option to turn those on or off. Okay, but you also have your Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. So if you click on that, now it'll open up that connection, and it'll show us all the tables of the. Right now I have one of the 2,500, and Microsoft is always continually adding what tables are defaulted. You can also turn those tables on. That's another, that would be a whole other different conversation to go through. So I'm not necessarily going to go through that here, but just know that there's a way to add your custom tables and other things you want. So you can go those. All I'd have to do is select the one that I want, hit save, and then after it goes through its processing, that table will then be in Fabric, because it takes a little while. I won't do that one here. But if I go down to and take a look at my other one here, that I have linked out there. Again, if I do the link to Fabric, it's not going to work because I already have the link there. But if I click on my Manage Tables, after my Dataverse comes up, you'll see that not all of my Dataverse tables are there by default. Okay, I can choose the ones that I want. So I have both my Dynamics 365 FNO and my Dataverse, and now I can actually choose the ones that I want. Within here, I'm going to go back to this main Fabric link I have here. If you actually click on the name, the Microsoft OneLake, after a minute, this is going to come up and show you the tables, and it'll show you the status that those tables are in. So if you have any errors where a particular table didn't load or didn't go over to Fabric, this is where you would be able to come in and see those errors and view what's view the things that are that are going on there. So this will just take a second to come up. Okay, now you see that my tables have come up. You can see my sync status of active. You can see the entity source, Dataverse, and my Fabric status as created. And if we come down here to my F&O table, this is what I need. This one has not been just recently added, so it hasn't been actually created in Fabric yet. So it's still waiting to be added. And you can see the count of information that's within count of records that are in each of these tables, when the last sync was, and the name, the table and the name. Okay, so from here, we can actually go and look at it in Fabric. So we can either click View in Microsoft Fabric, or we can simply go out to app.fabric.microsoft.com. Now here's the main view that you'll come into on Microsoft Fabric. And if you look in the lower left here, it'll say Microsoft Fabric. Now, if I want to look at my different experiences, I can click down here and you can see my different experiences come up. Power BI, Data Factory, Data Activator, Industry Solution, Data Engineer, Data Science, Data Warehouse, and Real-Time Analytics. I'm going to start and just show you the different ones. So Data Engineering, again, the same view that we had before. I can start a new Lakehouse. It's a very easy process. I can just click on Lakehouse. I can give it a name, and then my Lakehouse is created. I can create a new notebook. It'll open up the new notebook area, and now I can go about it. What's nice about the notebook area is that if I'm doing a new notebook, the items, I don't have any items loaded in here right now, but I'd be able to click and drag. So instead of me having to write the code up here to say, hey, this is the item I want to use, I can click and drag it over here, and it'll preset that information in there for me. So all I have to do is click and drag. So looking back at the experiences, data engineering, I can go to the data science one. Here's my machine learning model, experiments. I can import a notebook, create a new notebook, data warehouse. Again, I can create a warehouse, my data pipeline, Dataflow Gen 2. I can mirror my Azure SQL and other databases. Again, my real-time analytics, my data factory, or my Power BI, where I can come out here and create a new report. All those are through the experiences down here. Well, once you get into and are looking at one of your experiences, we can actually say, hey, you know what? I want to go out and workspace, and I actually have a workspaces that I've set up that I've already transferred some of my data over from. And so here's the one that I've already set up, and you can see here I have Notebook 1, I have Dataflow 1, and I have a test report. So I'm going to go into my connection example test here, my Lakehouse. When I go into my Lakehouse, you can see here are the tables that I currently have brought over. And I'm looking at this right now in my Lakehouse view, which means from here I could create a new semantic model if I wanted. I could get more data, which would be able to create a data pipeline, Gen 2. I could create a new shortcut here, new event stream, or I could do a new notebook or existing notebook from here. But let's say I'm not somebody who's well versed in the in notebook and being able to use PySpark and all that. If I wanted to use T-SQL, what I can do is I can either go back to my warehouse here and click on my SQL Analytics endpoint, or if I'm within my Lakehouse, in the upper right-hand corner here, where I have Lakehouse, explore your data in a file, so I can't make any changes there unless I create a notebook. Now I have my SQL Analytics endpoint. This is for querying data using SQL. So if I go into my SQL Analytics endpoint, it's actually going to change my experience here. I can still see all the tables. I can still see all the tables that I've brought in. And now I have a more familiar SQL Server or T-SQL type experience, right? I have my schemas, so I have my DBO schema, guest schema, and I have my other schemas. I have some couple of queries that I've created down here. And then, of course, I have my tables and any views that I've created. Now, I can create a new query up here, or one of the cool things through here is I can do a new visual query if I don't, if I'm not well versed in SQL or T-SQL and I still want to create a query, I can do it through this view up here. Or I'm going to come down here. I have a data query down here. I'll select that data query and I can run it. And you can see here it's running and it brings back my results. You can also create views. So this is what I did to create my Stoneridge Connect Fabric view up here, or I can hit my ellipses over here and I can do select top 10, create, alter, drop and create. So a lot of similar things that I could do in T-SQL that I could do in T-SQL in general. And that's from my SQL Analytics endpoint view. I'm going to go back to my workspace. I'm going to take a look at my data flow 1, because this is where, instead of doing the Fabric link, I actually created a data flow to bring in some of my data, so I could kind of show you what that looks like. So you see that this experience is very similar to if you've used Power Query. It's a very similar experience to that. So we can do get data, and there's a number of different I believe they said over 130 some different data sources that we can bring in, that we can bring data in from in our pipeline here. And then of course, we have our steps that we can apply over here. And then we just tell it the destination that we want to pop it out to. In this instance, I'm popping it out to the Lakehouse. Now, the only thing here is that when I'm in a data flow, for me to be able to switch to another item, I actually have to close my data flow. So I'm not going to make any changes here so that we can have a quick closure. And I'm back over here. So I've created my, I have my Lakehouse. I have my SQL Analytics endpoint. I can look at my semantic model, which is the items that are associated with it. You do have a default semantic model. You can create other semantic models and you can determine what goes into that. So right now I have just my view that I've created as part of that semantic model, because I don't want my tables in there. I only want my Power BI person to be using the view that I created. So then after that view, we can go back to the workspace here. I'm going to go ahead and click on my report. I could just click on new and do a new report or anything from here, but I already have one created, so I'm going to jump into that report. And you can see here I have several visuals that were created, and these were I asked the system to auto create these for me, by the way, and it created this fairly quickly. And you can see it's using my semantic model, which is just this view that I had brought in from F&O. Now, if I want to edit this and get the editing experience with it, I can click on Edit and OK. And now I'm back into the more Power BI, the Power BI online version of being able to edit. I have my visuals over here. I have my data. Over here. I can get specific with my filters. I can create slicers and do those other editing features that I want to with my system. And then when I'm done, I can simply save it. And then close my report, go back to my workspace, and now I can click back in and see whatever changes I made to my report. So that is a very quick basic rundown of Microsoft Fabric and the different components that are associated and made up of it. if you'd like any more information, or if you'd like to dig deeper in it, or if you'd like to have us talk with you about Fabric and how you could use it to kind of centralize some of your data, please don't hesitate to reach out and give us a call.